Claude Monet, the legendary French painter, changed the world of visual arts forever. Known as the founder of the Impressionist movement, Monet's work is all about capturing the beauty of light, nature, and those fleeting moments in time. From his famous water lilies to Impression sunrise, Monet's unique style unknowingly paved the way for photography as we know it today. When we take photos, we normally go out and we focus so much on the subject matter and what we're taking the picture of that we sometimes forget about light. The most important thing when it comes to photography is light. Because your camera is actually not capturing a certain object or a certain subject, but it's actually making a picture of how the light illuminates that subject. So the camera, like I said, is some kind of like a light catcher. So the first thing that we need to look at is light, even before we look at the subject matter or what we're taking a photo of. So light shapes everything we look at, and it changes it, not only in color, but the shapes of it, and also the feeling that you want to evoke. Because the camera works like the eye, if there's no light, you obviously wouldn't be able to see anything. So without light, photography would not exist. So here is how a photo is taken. So when I actually look through the viewfinder, I will see a certain scene and I'll see a specific object. The only reason why I can see it is because there's light. Light moves then through the lens and it gets modified by the lens and it changes according to what lens you have on, and it focuses the light, and then it goes through the aperture and it goes into, or you have a shutter that opens and the light hits the sensor or the film, depending on what I'm using. So when it comes to light and the foundations of light, it's not only about light just entering and exposing your film or your sensor, but it also gives it certain kind of characteristics. So light is made up of different types and different foundations. So by the end of this video, I will share the ultimate basic guideline when it comes to light. And I think it's really important for you to understand that and to know and apply that first before you look at the subject. So Claude Monet's Haystacks is a series of the most famous works, or his most famous works, and it's a perfect example of his style and artistic philosophy. He painted it in 1890 to 1891, and the series consists of about 25 paintings depicting the same haystack subject in different lighting conditions and at different times of the day, and also through different seasons. Monet's intention was not to focus on the haystacks themselves, but to explore the effects of light and atmosphere in the scene. So this brings us to the basics or the foundations when it comes to light in photography. And again, it's not only digital photography, this is the same thing and the same principles for film photography. So the first thing we need to look at is the type of light. Now, just to make it easy and basic for everybody to understand, and this is a good foundation again, I'm going to categorize light into two different types. Firstly, natural light, for example, the sun or the moon. And secondly, we're going to look at artificial light. That will be light that is created by you, the photographer. So for example, flashes, strobes, it might be like a table lamp or something you intentionally putting in the scene so you can have a different light source. And just for this example, I'm going to include any kind of ambient light that you are not placing, but that happens to be in the scene. I'm going to categorize this as natural light as well. So the type of light is very important because that will obviously change the characteristics of how your photo would appear. And to give it a good starting point, type of light and identifying the type of light is really important when it comes to your photography. So the second one we're going to look at is the direction of light. So what direction is the light coming from? And obviously your main light source can either be from the top, it can come from the bottom, it can come from front on like we have here in this scene, or it can come from the back. And then the next part would be the intensity of the light. That basically means how bright or how dim your light would be. So if I'm using a artificial light source like I'm using here, I can actually make it brighter, or I can make it dimmer, and that will also have an effect on me, or if you're a photographer, on your subject matter. So intensity means how bright or how dim that light would be, and you can change that artificially, or you can change that if you're using artificial light. But obviously when you're using or you're shooting in a certain scene, you have to determine the intensity and what effect that will have on your photograph. And then it comes to diffusion. So diffusion basically means the spread of light. So how soft or how hard that light would appear. When it comes to natural light, diffusion can be created by shooting on days that you, for example, have a scene and there's your main light source might be the sun, and you can use the clouds as a source of diffusion, and that'll diffuse your light and make it a lot softer. So your subjects would appear a lot softer. You can also use things like shady areas when you're using natural light like the sun. When you are using an artificial light, we will definitely be looking at some different modifiers you can apply to that light to diffuse it even more. Things like soft boxes, umbrellas, and sometimes even main sheet or sheets of paper to diffuse or make that light softer. By diffusing the light, you will not only make the light softer, but the shadows would also obviously appear a lot softer on that specific subject. So think for example, if you're doing something like portraiture and you want the light to be nice and soft, you're going to diffuse that light a lot more than when you are looking for a certain kind of aesthetic or a certain kind of harsh feel, when you will not necessarily diffuse the light. Also, the diffusion on your light might change according to the angle you're using. And sometimes when you're using kind of like a rim light, you want the light to be a lot sharper and not necessarily that soft. So the spread would be direct and not too wide when you're using something like side light or backlight. So the next one is something I call Monet's MindShift. So when you go out to take a photo again, whether it's with your film camera or it's with your digital camera, I want you to concentrate on the light first. Look at your objects after you've taken a look at the light. So rather look at shapes and forms and the way these principles actually combine to create a certain mood on your specific subject matter or whatever you're taking a photo of. Like I said, I call it Monet's MindShift, and it's always light first. Look at your light first. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please feel free to comment in the section below or to download our cue cards, and I will see you next time. Bye.